G'day, I'm Mark from Self-Sufficient Me, and in this video I'm going to show you how to grow all of this turmeric, all this here, in just 3 square feet of garden bed. That's right, just in that little corner, all this turmeric. And you won't believe how easy it is to do. This is the rhizome or root of the turmeric plant. Technically it's part of the ginger family. It's one of the most famous foods in the world, particularly due to its versatility in cooking. It's used in a whole range of foods, but also its medicinal qualities. Scientific tests have shown turmeric to stimulate cancer-fighting genes in human cells, and the best way to eat it is fresh or powdered in food, such as a curry, rather than in a tablet supplement. But health qualities aside, I just love it because it adds flavour to home cooking and it tastes great. So fresh turmeric is best, eh? Well, let's get into my 5 top tips on how to grow a ton of it. Tip number 1, planting. Turmeric is a really hardy crop. It's easy to grow. You can even abuse it and it'll still find a way. But to get the best out of your turmeric crop and to grow the most of it, try doing these things. First of all, compost. Prepare the soil before planting by adding lots of rich compost. Turmeric loves a lot of food. Like I said, it will grow miserly if it has to, but give it lots of food and I tell you what, it'll love you back. Use pieces of the rhizome, roughly 2 or 3 inches square. Smaller pieces will grow also, but the bigger the piece, the more energy reserves it has to grow well. Plant it in free draining, crumbly soil that has been well tilled. Otherwise, in hard compacted soil, the root will find it harder to expand and it may also rot. Plant about 6 inches apart or thereabouts, but turmeric does grow well crowded, so don't worry too much if it's a little crowded in. Bury the rhizome about 1 inch or 2 underneath the surface and fertilise with a good few handfuls of organic fertiliser such as blood and bone and chicken pellet manure, or you can use well-rotted animal manures if you've got them handy. You should mulch over the top of the turmeric once you plant it, say about 2 or 3 inches, sugarcane mulch, or even its own stems that have died back from the last season, because this will stop weeds competing with the new shoots as the turmeric tries to grow through. And for those of you who like growing in pots and containers, just like ginger, turmeric will grow really well in those environments also. The same principles apply. Tip number 2, water. Turmeric originates from Southeast Asia, which is primarily a tropical climate. It loves it hot and wet. But just because turmeric comes from a tropical region doesn't mean you can't grow it all around the world. Grow it at the hottest time of the year, in a position where it has plenty of sun, and water it regularly. Water more, especially if you are growing in pots or containers, because they tend to dry out faster. And that's the balance you have to make. You need it free draining because that's what turmeric likes, but you also need to give it plenty of water. So if your soil is too heavy in whatever container you use or garden bed, you're going to try to water it and give it the water it needs, but then if it's too boggy, the tubers might just rot in the soil. So the key really is more free draining than anything, even if it means you have to water it daily. Tip number 3, the growing area. I'm sitting in it. To grow this much turmeric, you really need a fair-sized growing area. Yes, this is only 3 feet by 3 feet, just where I'm sitting now, and I grew this much. But of course, logically, you can't grow this much turmeric in a tiny pot like this. So you've got to allow for at least a bit of space. It's best to find a central vegetable garden position where the sun can get access to the plants for most of the day without getting shaded out by other plants or trees. You may need to build up your stock over several years, to get this much turmeric. just doesn't happen overnight, obviously. All this started from just one plant in a small pot that I got from our local nursery 3.5 years ago. So it's possible. Take what you need, preserve, eat what you need, and put the rest back into the garden, and then you'll keep growing your stock like that. Tip number 4, crop rotation. You may have heard about the benefits of crop rotation and how good it is to rotate your crops in a separate garden bed each year. I've found it's only necessary to crop rotate every 2 seasons, every few years, to negate soil depletion and a build-up of pests. So if you start off growing well and you find your plants are not doing so well, root rot, worms, borers, slow growth, etc., consider moving to another bed and give it a fresh start. That should do the trick. Tip number 5, harvesting. Let the plant die back fully, because this is the time when the plant is dying back that it transfers all the energy into the rhizome, and that prepares it for the dormant stage to come. Then when you harvest the roots, it will be better tasting because it's more mature, and it'll also store better on the shelf. Use these old stems back into the garden as mulch because it rejuvenates the soil, it protects the soil, it also limits weed growth throughout the season. Try to harvest the turmeric before the new season starts in spring, otherwise it will start shooting and you'll have turmeric growing over the top of turmeric. Carefully dig up the turmeric rhizome with a garden fork. It'll come out in clumps, and with just a little bit of pulling and shaking, it'll come apart quite easily. You'll notice 2 distinct parts of the rhizome. The often central mouse-shaped part with side roots coming off it, and also the finger parts. I don't use the mouse-shaped parts for eating. I'd rather keep them for replanting. You can eat them if you want, but personally I think they're not as rich and tasty as the fingers are. Turmeric will store okay on the shelf or in the crisper to use fresh for several weeks, but you can preserve it by freezing, pickling, or making your own powdered spice. You can also store it in a bag or a tub or even just a box with a little bit of soil or mulch over the top so that you can keep it for when you're ready to plant it out for the new coming season. And that's it. Those are my 5 top tips on how to grow a ton of turmeric. If you liked the video, give me a big fat turmeric thumbs up, and also share it like crazy all over the internet. Don't forget to subscribe, and the website self-sufficientme.com. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye for now.